Y'all, Wizard101 just teased something this morning and people are calling it a true game changer. Y'all, when I say that I'm excited about this is something I've been waiting for. I've been yearning for it. What you see on your screen is what got teased today. It is literally the game's first ever dual blade. If you're anything like me, from a young age, you know, from the days of the early young wizard, you've been wanting to probably dive into another school, and it's never been as possible as now, but even to this day, there still remains a lot of obstacles to like using a secondary school on a primary one. But what they teased today and the details that they teased about it are kind of huge. They only teased the art for it, but it is pretty obvious what they're going for. And the one caveat that they added is, though they don't know the values of what these blades are going to be, the spells are going to feature 2 blades at 0 pips. Now, I cannot overstate how important this is, because right now, let's say that on my debt, I run storm damage, right? Let's say that I want to spend a round buffing my depth and my storm hits, right? If I wanted to do that, the best way to do it would be with something like a star blade. But the problem with something like a star blade is that it's a whole pip. So yes, there is a lot of value in literally making sure that I'm threatening a powerful death hit and a powerful storm hit with the stats to complement it. Yes, there's something good about that. But in both PvE and PvP, everyone can tell you using a whole round for that is very, very often not worth it. So if they had a spell that just adds for 0 pips just a storm blade and a death blade, that could be kind of huge. Now, obviously, the next question is, what is the value of these blades, right? What is the value of these going to be? And that's where the discussion gets kind of tricky, because right now, right, there's one reason to use the dual blades is to, like, you know, hit with, you know, one school and another. But another reason to maybe use a dual blades is to set up a blade gambit. And the gambits are what all of these spells are, you know, valued around. Without getting too bogged up in the details, when there's a 0 pip way to build up to a gambit, very often it could end up being very overpowered. That's what happened with Doomoni, right? They basically made it so it no longer doubled the base damage, but instead added a good amount to the base damage if you happen to have 4 shields on yourself. And that's because shields are 0 pips, right? Even triple shields. You can easily put these on, keep defending yourself, and keep building up to a double damage condition, and you don't have to really take any risks doing it. On the contrary, blade gambits, they are a 2 times conditional thing. If you have 4 blades on yourself, that 855 base damage on the Jin gets doubled. Would adding a spell that at 0 pips gives you 2 blades make it so that they can no longer make this a ×2 situation? That we don't know. And this is really important, right? Because the things that, you know, when this gets affected, things like raids get affected, things like PvP get affected, and future advanced combat sigils will also get affected by these. Another thing that I think is really worth mentioning in this whole conversation about blade gambits and blade stacking and all of that with dual blades, while this is not the case in live realm right now where I am, in test realm where this update is gonna, you know, eventually go to live, there is a no PvP symbol on Enfeeble, and AoEs are banned, so Earthquake is also banned in PvP. So it's already going to be easier to blade up like crazy and set up things like Storm Scion and things like Death Djinn and, like, you know, all those. So is it really wise adding a very powerful dual blade for 0 pips in that same update? That's another element. On the flip side, maybe they'll just make the blades just not that powerful, so they don't have to do anything to the blade gambits, but then you're looking at blades that are probably not going to be that powerful. Compared to a whole ass death blade into a storm blade, right? What are you actually getting out of this dual blade, right? Like, what if it's only like 15 or 20%? That's also a question that they're gonna have to answer. To me, I feel like 15 to 20% is probably where they'll arrive, but I feel like if it's a 15% dual blade, I don't think there's anyone that's going to be using it, because it just makes more sense to literally spend the round using a different triple blade anyways. I can see, therefore, why they haven't arrived at the values for this. It could either be extremely overpowered to the point where you have to start messing around with blade gambits, or it could be so underpowered that nobody's actually going to use it. What I will say is, I think it has to be less than 25%, because Dark Pact is a spell that already exists, and it gives you 225 blades at 1 pip, but it also does damage to you. So, you know, a spell that's 0 pips and doesn't damage you, I feel like necessarily it has to be not, you know, 25%. Another important element, maybe from a design perspective, is that they might actually just be wanting to push dual school, right? It's clear that that's where all the updates have gone for the past last like, you know, a few months at least. And does that mean because they're pushing dual school so much, will they, you know, maybe give the spell a little bit more wiggle room maybe to work out so that people actually try to use it more, right? Is that the type of reasoning that they're going to use to make the blades better than they might actually be in another context? So there's a lot of moving parts there, but I definitely think that the value of the blade is going to completely determine whether it's going to be used or not. But just the fact that they're adding stuff like this opens up the room, opens up the door for dual traps. That could be a whole new scenario. I think adding these opens up the actual Pandora's box for all kinds of new spells that we just have only imagined up to this point. I think dual schooling is really, really interesting because I feel like it's fairly divisive in the Wiz community. There's some people that openly embrace it and think that it's actually something that adds a lot of strategy and adds an element of like uniqueness to each build, even within the same school. And while yes, that layer of complexity is important for a game like Wiz, a lot of people just want Wiz to be simple, like the game that they always used to play. In a Twitter thread that tweeted out like, you know, oh wow, these dual school blades are coming. You saw this dichotomy come out like, you know, very obviously, right? There's some people that are extremely hype about just combining these schools in a way that they'd only imagined up to this point. And then on the same ass thread, there's people that are like, yo, what's happening to the game? And that's like the weirdest tension that I think it adds a whole new element to changes like this, right? How do you push for something that on the surface is cool and unique, but keep the base gameplay intact for people that don't want an overly complicated gaming experience? If you keep things too simple, then you have things like raids and PvP and anything beyond just the base gameplay become watered down, and that's not fun. But if you make things too complicated, then it becomes too hard to understand, and most players won't even bother doing side activities beyond just the very, very casual storyline that they're offered at base. That seems to be the unique power struggle that's behind almost every Wiz update, and it's gonna continue being a thing, but it's something worth watching and maybe even deciding what side are you on, and how do you think they should, you know, cater to your side or another side better? Are there even sides in all of this? Is there just, you know, something that's happening here where there's a type of game to play for everyone with changes like this? All in all, I'm just here for the changes. I'm kind of here for the chaos. Big shout out to Ratbeard for literally doing a dev stream on a Friday morning, leaking spells like this. I linked the whole VOD in the description below. There's a lot more nuance to the discussion, obviously, especially from a dev perspective, so y'all should probably watch that. If you're really, you know, if you're a nerd, you should watch it, especially if you're a nerd. As always, I look forward to reading y'all's comments on this. Do y'all think that dual blades at 0 pips, do you think they could never make them powerful enough for you to consider using? Do you guys think that blade gambits are going to become too powerful, or do you guys think dual schooling might become more powerful? I will be watching these updates very closely around these, because I think that it could really be a game changer. As always, drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. I look forward to reading y'all's comments. Stay awesome, y'all, and yeah, y'all.